Has CDB moved? Has James left a club that just signed him to go to the Premier League? And is Greg Bros, our elite winger, still playing in midfield? Hello, my friends, and welcome back. It is the end of year 11, and it's June 30th of 2034. Hello, my friends, popping in here towards the beginning of the episode. I am in the midst of editing this, and I've noticed that some of the audio peaks and sounds a little distorted. So it's not like the episode is ruined, but there are going to be times where it sounds a little electronic. I can't do anything about it. Again, sorry about the audio. The thing I have to look at first is CDB, and he has signed a new deal with AC Milan. Okay, so I actually thought there was a pretty good chance he was going to leave. I'm a bit surprised by that. He's up to 525 grand a week, so a 25 grand a week raise. Not much, 5% or something like that. He signed it about a month after last episode. It is a 5-year deal. CDB has laid down roots in Milan and he wants to stay there. And I feel like there's a lot of optional contract extensions. I feel like when I try to do that with players, they get upset. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. 11 million on the loyalty bonus. On the loyalty bonus. Okay, fair enough. He pulls his groin. He's only out for 4 days in the entire season. And as you would expect, he plays a lot. This time, 35 total appearances. 11. Ooh. Okay. Double-digit goals, 11 goals, 7 assists. So, is he being utilized differently? 4 player of the match, 731. That's his third, I think, highest rating, of his seasons at AC Milan, if you will. 15 continental starts. How did he get 785 in the cup? I mean, it's the cup. They didn't go very far in the Coppa Italia, apparently. Oh dear, big drop off. Oh my, maybe that's why he has more goals. Did they get rid of people who score goals and he was the only one left? They finish in 5th? Yeah, oh, it was close. Okay, it was a tight race. So, I mean, 4 points between 2nd and 5th is kind of wild, but still 5th. Still in the Champions League. Luckily enough for AC Milan, because that means all the money and all that kind of stuff is going to keep coming in. They lose to Lazio in the Coppa Italia 3rd round. That's why there's no cup run there. CDB scoring the goal in the 51st minute. In the Champions League, they go all the way to the semifinal, losing to Napoli, who they also lost the league title to on a 3-2 aggregate scoreline after having won the first leg. CDB does a 6.7 in the second leg, and he does a 7.8 in the first leg. They got past Real Madrid to get there, which is lovely. 7.8 in the second leg there for CDB, 7.4 in the first leg. Even though they lost, they go to penalties, but, they still get through. Oh, that is... Now, I can't see, unfortunately, the stats for last season, but it looks like they're playing a 4-3-3 with a DM, and he is the left midfielder. Again, star player, not for sale. Don't even bother. Don't come talk to us about him. And Pep is the manager now. They sacked Luis Enrique after finishing 5th. So that's interesting that he's now played for Klopp, De Zerbi, Nagelsmann for a hot second, Enrique, and Pep. I mean, the cream of the crop. And there's your attribute analysis. Got it. Wow. Okay, so we now get to wait to see if next time if Pep can rescue them from finishing 5th. Again, I think that's harsh because it's only 4 points, but it's still 4 points, and you don't have the Coppa Italia to make you feel any better about that. Is there, it is. Internationally, as you might expect, he's playing and playing well. In this window, it goes essentially over 2 weeks. He starts every game. 8.1 with a goal, 7.5, 7.3, 7.1. They come back a month later. He does a 6.2 against Kosovo in a draw, which is quite disappointing, I'm guessing, if you're Sweden. And then against Norway, he does a 6.9, but they win 3-0, so it doesn't really matter. They've made it to the World Cup, but in the friendlies in the March window, he comes off the bench because I'm assuming this is we don't really need to be playing this guy. He's on a 6.8. He starts the next game against Brazil in a loss on a 6.8, but this is warm-ups. And then, of course, they decide to do a friendly against the United States, and this seems completely unrealistic, but they lose 1-0 with Ricardo Pepi getting the goal. CDB off the bench for a 6.9, but again, we're just warming up. We're not trying to reveal our cards and our tactics too early because we're going to make a heck of a run in the World Cup all the way to the round of 16, which we've not seen yet. So he does a 6.8 against New Zealand, a 7.1 against the Korea Republic, also known as South Korea, in the save. A 7.1 there, 3-2 win, so close game. They scored in the 94th minute to rescue a win there. And then they beat Canada. He does a 9.3, folks. I don't think we've had a single player in any game that I've looked at do a 9.3. That doesn't mean it hasn't happened because I've looked obviously at every league and cup and whatever game. A 9, can we see what happened there? He gets the player of the match. He has 5 key passes, creates 2 clear-cut chances, makes it a whole 1 interception, and has a clearance and has a goal and 2 assists on a 9.3. And the 2 assists went to Alexander Isak, who was only on an 8.0. And they only created 2 clear-cut chances, and that was his. And I think this is kind of interesting because I haven't really paid attention to this. They're playing in a 4-2-3-1, and okay, this is my beef, okay? Football Manager, when I first load this, it had them switch, and he was in the Segundo Volante, and now he's showing as the halfback. I would be very surprised if the halfback had 2 assists. My guess is they switched at the end of the game because he was tired, right? He's down to this. Also, Larson is as well. But it showed when the game was loading, he was the Segundo Volante, and that makes more sense to me. But that's interesting that they're playing a 4-2-3-1 and he's in that role. They then go on to take on Saudi Arabia in the second round and squeak out, I would say, a 2-1 win. And Saudi Arabia has a man sent off in extra time, which leads to Isak's penalty for the first goal. But then they pull one back, Saudi Arabia does, in the 76th minute, and it takes Gyökeres. I can never say that guy's name. Gyökeres scores in the 87th minute to get them on to the round of 16 and avoid, I think, penalties at that point. CDB does a 7.5. That's the thing that we're here for. And this is being played in the Korea Republic. So things are great. If you're CDB, he's not going anywhere. I'd be really surprised if he just doesn't spend the rest of his career, right? Because if he does 4 more years, he'll be 31 and a half. I mean, he might have 1 more move, but like at that point, it's like, do you really... I don't know how Football Manager handles this. If the player's like, I have been a star player forever, like I'm not taking a step down to go back to Inter Miami or whatever, we'll have to see. All right, let's go check in on James. I've put James towards the end in the last several episodes. He's still a Feyenoord, so Liverpool does not generate the financial cash to come get him. Does he play? Yes. Okay. 2 seasons in a row of actual playing time, I think, is absolutely massive for James. You might say, well, it's in like the 5th or 6th best league or whatever. Maybe the 6th best league at this point. It depends on how you feel about France, I guess. But 29 starts, 8 goals, 5 assists, 704. Best rating he's had of his career in a non-third division. Gets 12 continental starts as well with 3 goals on a 6-6-7. But against your Feyenoord, you're probably not expected to do as well in those continental competitions. You might imagine. And he's still involved internationally. Feyenoord finished 2nd again. They're under Felipe Clement. This is interesting because the game doesn't know that Schlot's already gone. He stays until July of 2028. I thought it said they finished 2nd. Hold on a second. Am I crazy? Oh, this is 32-33. The season, for some reason, has not officially clicked over to be the next season. I was like, this says 2nd, right? Like I'm right over here. It says 2nd. But they actually finish 3rd, 2 points off. So they're going to be in the Europa League. You know, that might not be the worst thing for Feyenoord because like if they've been struggling in the Champions League, which I don't know, but just looking at his ratings, Champions League, yeah, they don't make it to the next round. Obviously, the money in the Champions League is better. But if you're like trying to win stuff, Europa League might be more Feyenoord's level, maybe, if that makes sense. So maybe not a complete disaster. They lose to PSV in the Cup semifinal. James gets a 5.5. A red card. He gets sent off in the 21st minute. He dooms his team. They're already down 1-0, I guess, so he's not the reason they lost, technically. And they hold off until the 87th minute before the second goal goes in. That is gutting, though. Again, not going to look at every single one of these. He does play against CDB with AC Milan, and he does a 6.2. CDB probably stole his lunch money. Oh, and he signed a new contract in February, so they pick him up on a free. They play him for a season and a half, and he's like, I'm pretty good. And this is probably right after, I mean, not right after, it's a couple weeks after the transfer window closes. So I wonder if it was like, hey, we promise we'll give you a new contract. Just don't leave. And so he doesn't leave. And it's a 4-year deal. So he's up to $75,000 a week. He doesn't play in the first 2 games of CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying, which is kind of interesting. He starts against Argentina on a 6.9. They get another red card for the team in the 33rd minute, so that's not so hot. And then he starts against Ecuador in a 3-0 loss on a 6.9, but everyone plays. Does he have the... Oh, he has the second best rating, tied for second best rating of the entire squad. It's not really James's fault, I guess. But they make it to the World Cup. In the warm-up game before the World Cup, he starts and does a 6.8. They lose to the Netherlands, probably against some of his teammates maybe, on a 6.5. They beat Curacao. Curacao makes the World Cup. I think that deserves one of these, and maybe hit the like button for that. Go on, Curacao. Let's go. On a 6.8. I know it's expanded World Cup, but you get the idea. A 6.8, but he gets a knock. Does he play against Nigeria? No, he does not play against Nigeria. Let's go back, because it looked like it wasn't a serious injury when I looked at his injury history. It's a tight thigh for 3 days on June 22nd. So he's not 100% back, and I guess they knew they were going to qualify either way. So they don't play him. Now they get Austria 2 days after this episode. I'm hoping he'll start then. Overall, I am super thrilled because I kind of thought James was going to die on the vine, if that makes sense. But what an interesting career. Lots of back and forth with Benfica's second team. One loan, then they just let his contract run out. Feyenoord picks him up and has now promoted him, right? Essentially. He's a regular starter and maybe you should call Marcus's, agent should call each other, actually playing as a regular starter. 43 total appearances plus a sub, or starts, I should say, plus a sub. That's not bad. Speaking of Marcus, let's go check him out. Still at Real Sociedad. And not playing. Okay. Maybe he's playing a little bit. I'm going to leave it unzoomed out here so you can see. He has 8 more total appearances than last season, but 1 less start in the league, right? So he's got 18 subs, but he scores 11 goals. Again, if I could just have the number of minutes. Actually, since it's still the current season, I think we can see the number of minutes. Let's go do that. I'm in the middle. It's fine. How has my man scored 12 goals in 864 minutes? That is a goal every 72 minutes. I just pulled out a calculator to do that. He is the highest. No, he is the second. They've still got Karim Konate. He's surpassed Pablo Enrique. Or Henri, maybe. It's not. I know it's not. For the second most goals on the squad. And yet, he still can't start because they got this 30 or 31-year-old guy, whoever it was. So, yay. We'll zoom in here just to take a deeper dive here. They don't really make a cup run, but he does 7.2 and gets a goal there. No continental, obviously. And then internationally, he gets 6 more goals. And he's still listed as the 4th sub. I didn't catch that the first time. His value is 40 million to 119 million. But he's not making as much as Mara, who's 31 and still on a regular starter contract, and he has 2 years left. So I don't know if Marcus is going to get any significant more playing time this coming season. I mean, if you're getting an average of 36 minutes a game, now that is across all competitions, I think, right? Because I would imagine maybe, he's starting in the cup, so that's going to skew that a little bit. But still, to get he did score 11 goals in 3 starts, surely, right? That doesn't make any sense. If it did, surely he'd be playing all the time, I guess, is really the thing there. We're actually going to look, because it's not actually that many games, so I want to highlight this. So he comes on and does a 6.9 and scores the winning goal against Real Santander in September. He comes on against Real Betis and does a brace in the 83rd and 85th minute. He got subbed on in the 33rd minute, so it's not like he was a 65th minute sub and immediately changes the game. Nonetheless, he does score the equalizing and winning goal in that game. He gets a penalty in the 24th minute and a loss to Villarreal. He scores in the 7th minute, which ends up being the winning goal against Cadiz. 7th minute, my man loves an early goal. That is just hilarious to me. Scores in the 68th minute as a sub against Pamplona. Bags a brace against Real Madrid to draw the game. Real Madrid scores in the 7th and 8th minute, and Marcus scores in the 74th and 88th. When did he come on? He comes on in the 54th minute and saves Real Sociedad, as you do. Go on, son. Scores in the 88th minute against Elche, and then bags a brace in the 71st and 74th minute in a kind of a blowout win against Cadiz. But they saved it until late, to be fair. He does an 8.0. That looks like he came on as a sub, maybe for Mara, who did a 6.9. So he is impacting games and kind of in bunches a little bit. So that's kind of interesting. Disappointingly, Sociedad finishes 1 point off of Europa League or conference. It doesn't matter. They're not in continental competition. Marcus had those 2 games against India and Iran, and they lose both of them. He scores in the 87th minute, which was an equalizer after a man got sent off from Indonesia, and then they immediately concede a minute later to lose to India. Oh, that is devastation. He does a 6.5 in a loss to Iran where nobody scores. They bounce back in a friendly against China. It doesn't matter because that pushes them to the playoff, right? So in the playoff, okay, they do some warm-up games. Who cares about that? In the playoff, they beat Haiti. He scores in the 35th minute. It's a 3-1. They did have a man advantage for the entire second half, but they were already up 3-1 at that point. And then it goes to extra time against Syria. Marcus scores in the 16th minute, does an 8.1, and they get by. So they do make it to the World Cup, and then things kind of don't. Oh my gosh, that is brutal. Okay. Woo! Ivory Coast smashed them 6-0. 6-0. Marcus does a 6.1. They lose 5-0 to Switzerland. He does a 6.3. And they lose only 2-0 to England, who maybe were already through. But with the goal differential, you might think England needs to do something there. And he does a 6.4. The Indonesian keeper in that game does an 8.0 to keep England from scoring and running up the score. England still finished top. But at the end of the day, you go, well, at least Marcus got to experience the World Cup. Which, yeah, I just checked. That's the first time in the save that Indonesia made the World Cup. So at least he got to go. His value's 40 to 119 million, I guess because of that new contract. It seems he's going to stay put, at least from like nobody's coming in for him. His release clause is crazy, 102 million. He just signed a new deal, and all, but that's interesting to me that he signed the new deal and he's still concerned because they said we play him as a regular starter and he's not playing. So kind of a mixed bag. Let's go check on Gustav. I'm assuming he's still at Juve. I was going to say, let's zoom out and zoom in. He's at Juve. He's on 225 a week. That's probably just a clause for a raise in his contract. He's still got 3 years left. He stays relatively injury-free, 13 days missed. Okay, having looked at this, I think this is Gustav's best year yet. Despite the fact that he only has 30 starts compared to last season where he had 34 total league appearances, with one of those being subs. His rating is a 7.11, which again, as a center back, I think is relatively hard to get the AI to get. He picks up 3 assists as well. He doesn't play in as many continental. I think they probably have 1 less continental game that he plays in, 9 last season versus 8 total this season. He's still involved internationally. They maybe make a cup run. They get at least 1 game further in the cup, which I don't remember how far they got last time. But he does a 7.11. I think this is his best season yet. What do you think? Despite it being their best season, or his best season, they finish 3rd. Napoli win the title again. They're behind Inter, but they're ahead of Atalanta and AC Milan. Again, a really tight race. 4 points. 4 points in between. Oh, that's interesting. De Zerbi's now in charge. So Thomas Tuchel left. It looks like he wasn't sacked. He left on his own accord right after last episode, and they go get De Zerbi, who, as a reminder, was at Man City. They lose in the Coppa Italia second leg of the semifinal, I should say, obviously over 2 legs. It goes to penalties. Gustav in the second leg does a 7.3. In the first leg, he does a 7.4. The back line played well. It's all the attacker's fault, clearly. Goalkeeper on 6.6 and 6.7. Not exactly loving life there. They get knocked out by Serie A rivals Atalanta in the Champions League knockout playoff back in February. Gustav does not play in either of those games in February, which is weird because he's not injured. Again, that doesn't make any sense. Why would that be? Why would they not play him here? And despite the fact that I can hover over this and click to view the match report, I'm not getting a match report. So we will never know, I guess. He played in the previous Champions League games. He plays against CDB, who scores the winner, or no, the first goal, I should say, the equalizer goal. But Gustav does an 8.0 in that match. Not bad, son. Not bad. I'm really confused. Why wouldn't you play him against Atalanta? They play him against Atalanta in the semifinal of the Coppa Italia, but here, did they not register him? But that doesn't, he didn't pick up an injury on like February 7th or whenever the registration window is. I have no idea. That's weird. I've missed this. I don't know how long this has been here. Gustav is listed as the key player for Juve. Maybe that's not such a good thing if that's not an attacking player. If a center back is your key player. Going back into the international realm, last autumn he doesn't play in a draw against Belgium. They beat Gibraltar despite giving up a 4th-minute goal. He plays a 7.0. He draws against Ireland. We'll go back to that when we look at Greg on a 7.5. Plays well there. They beat Moldova. He does a 7.1. That's like several games in a row of pretty good ratings for a center back. He picks up a knock against Bulgaria in a 6.8, and they lose. Then they lose to Belgium. They get a red card in the 11th minute. Gustav doesn't start that game. I wonder if he subs on because of that. He ends up doing a 7.7, but they still lose. And that means they're out of the World Cup. They finish in 2nd place on 18 points, and it's not enough to get them in. And I guess spoilers, Greg doesn't make the World Cup either on 17 points. So they got a bunch of friendlies to play. He's still involved. They lose to France. He does a 7.0. He does a 6.9 against Switzerland in a win. They probably aren't helping Estonia and Slovakia warm up for the World Cup, would be my guess. He plays in those games. That's an 8.5. That's a really nice rating for a center back in the game against Slovakia. But now it's on to the Nations League B. So overall, Gustav's career is going well. His value is really nice. His contract is lovely. Are we now saying he's now the 3rd Wonderkid? He's listed as an elite center back. So kind of that late bloomer that was really developed well by Juve, and we were all complaining about it for episodes. We all, / me, were complaining about it for many episodes, but it's kind of worked out. Now, the club side, they're not doing so hot, but it's not really his fault. Since we saw what happened with Ireland, let's go take a look at Greg. He's still playing. He's up to 450 grand a week. He signed a new contract 2 months after last episode. He's listed as an elite winger. He does another 33 appearances, less goals, more assists than the preseason, but 4 players of the match. That's the most he's had at Real Madrid, which is probably significantly better than the 5 he got at Parma. He does a 7.17, which is actually the 3rd, like 3 in a row where it's gone down, but just a little bit, and he's doing extremely well. They play a lot in continental. He scores 7 goals in continental play on a 7.56. And internationally, he does a 7.73. Not bad, sir. Despite that, Real Madrid do not win the title by 6 points. Atletico Madrid win the title under who? Eduardo Coudet, who's been there, 4.5 years? Not bad, sir. So yeah, it looks like he's definitely, even though he's listed as an elite winger, he is playing as a center mid next to Jude Bellingham. Not bad. Not bad, sir. They get knocked out by AC Milan over 2 legs in the Champions League quarterfinal. He does a 7.3 in the first leg, and he does a 7.4 in the second leg. So they do all right. It goes to penalties. Oh, I don't think we looked at that. He makes his penalty. CDB is not, he's not on the pitch for the penalties. He comes off in the 68th minute, but it doesn't matter. AC Milan got by. And the Copa del Rey, they lose over 2 legs. No, 2-1. Yes, they lose over 2 legs, 4-1. He does a 5.9 in the first leg. Ooh, that's the lowest we've seen from him, I think, in quite some time. And then he doesn't even play long enough. He comes off with a knock. Ooh, and they end up losing the game. But playing a ton, I'm surprised Real Madrid's fallen down to 3rd. Will they bounce back next season? So again, I think the Irish resurgence we saw in previous seasons has definitely fallen a bit flat. So he does an 8.2, but they lose to Bulgaria. He does a 6.7 and a loss, although they had a man sent off. Justin Marvelous Osagi was sent off in the 29th minute and a loss to Moldova. They draw with Hungary, as we noted. He doesn't score the goal, but he does an 8.1. He probably has the assist there, would be my guess. They lose to Belgium. He does a 7.6. He plays quite well. That's actually a fair, if you look at the rating, nobody played super poorly, so they played well. They just couldn't get the job done. Then they played Gibraltar, 8.5 with a goal in a 3-0 win, and then they beat Bulgaria this time at home, 3-1, and Greg does a 7.3, but it's too little, too late. They play a couple friendlies. He's not involved because it doesn't matter. And that's really Greg. We'll move on. We'll go check in on Chris. He is still at Kaiserslautern. Oh, and he's got games for the second team. And he's wanted by who? St. Louis City. So Philadelphia didn't come in. Rizespor in Turkey is also potentially maybe somehow interested. He signed a new contract in January. Why? I guess that's because originally it was a 2-year deal, if I remember correctly. So it's an extension for another 2 years. And it has a release clause of 175, which I still think is probably too high, but it's the top end of his value, maybe. He doesn't really play. Gets 4 starts, 4 subs. Again, squad player, does a 6.88. And they punt him down to the second team. I guess maybe for match sharpness, maybe, which is not in a listed league level in the game, where he has 15 starts, 3 goals, and a 7.14. He does score his first league goal since Real New York FC. So his first real career goal in a loaded league in the game, and still ends up with a 6.88 average. He's all right, and he gets 8 international. So he's I guess the 1 cup start. So he plays 9 times total, but 8 starts in international play on a 6.24. San Marino things. Disappointingly, Kaiserslautern misses at least the playoffs by a whole 2 points. So close, but so very far. Chris is not even listed on the bench. Again, as a squad player, he's concerned. At least, to fair, I feel a little bit better, right? That he's concerned, because my players would be rioting if I didn't play him that much as a squad player. So maybe he's just rioting and they're just ignoring him. Now, he has fallen off the San Marino top player list, which, isn't saying much, but also could be suddenly they've got good players. Probably not. World Cup qualifying, they lose every game. We'll just breeze through it. 5.9 against Ireland, or 5.9 against England, 5.5 with a double yellow card against Northern Ireland, so he misses the next match. He does a 6.5 against Albania, a 6.3 against Serbia, and a 6.3 against England. Although, to be fair, a 6.3 is not all that bad when you look at the rest of the defenders around him. They play some friendlies. He gets another double yellow card sent off in the 51st minute. It's that Chris wanted to have a dirty, aggressive player. I think that's what you're seeing is he cannot control himself. 6.9 with a knock. They did draw, but that's a friendly against Kosovo. And then they lose to Andorra. He does a 6.9. So somewhat surprisingly, Chris might be in for a move. But we said that last time. But this time there's 2 clubs that are sniffing around for him. And he's concerned and not playing. Although again, man, you're making $500,000 a year to not play. That's not bad. His attributes are garbage though. So yeah. Last but not least, we're going to go check in on Chase. He's still with PSG. He's still with PSG. He's wanted again. Now, this is a Saudi Pro League. He's not even the first choice for that. Fantastic. And he signed a contract extension in the middle of the year with an optional contract extension of a year. He's on $67,000 a week. He's got another 3 or maybe 4 years left with PSG. Even more disappointingly, because it's he's getting loaned out. He's happy. He's getting paid. He doesn't really care. No, my friends, he doesn't get loaned out this season. He only plays 1, comes in as a sub. So some injury. He's on the bench. And he does a 7.7 in that match. We might argue that's somewhat impressive. But he doesn't play. He gets 8 internationals, concedes 13. With only 2 clean sheets on a 6.59, but that is disappointing. I have no idea what's going on with PSG squad. He's not even listed on the bench right now. He's listed as a backup, but they have another backup, Lucas Chevalier, and Donnarumma still there on first choice contract at age 35. Did the other 2 keepers have injuries? It doesn't really matter, but he's not playing. Now to see him play, let's go look at Australia in World Cup qualifying. In the 4th round, he does a 7.7 in a win against Syria. He does a 7.6 in a win against China. So they qualify? Or I'm not sure what the next phase is. Let's check. He plays against Iraq and Cameroon, does a 6.9 and a 6.2 respectively. They lose to Cameroon. They draw with Iraq. They did make the World Cup. Okay, well, at least there's that. 6.2 against Georgia, 6.1 against Thailand. Not loving those friendlies in that window. A 6.2. Confidence is in the gutter. Again, this is in Korea Republic, so they're playing against the home team, where the World Cup is being held, but he still does a 6.2 in the warm-up game. Against Argentina, he does a 5.8 in a 4-0 loss. They score in the 5th minute, and they score all 4 goals in the first half, probably subbed everybody off. You're like, well, this game's won. It's all good. They draw with Cape Verde on a 6.3 and then a 6.1 against Turkey A. But again, he got to experience being the starting keeper of the World Cup. We take our wins where we can get them with these players, my friends, and I think that is a potential quasi, maybe a little bit of a win. All right, my friends, I've got this rated by transfer value, but not for sale. CDB's on the bottom, but he's making the most. So really look at the wages, probably the better way to do that now. But we've got 3 players over 100 million in minimum value, which is insane. So I want to hear from you. Is Gustav now going to count as a third Wonderkid? If we go way back to the beginning, I only set up one Wonderkid to have the highest range, but that doesn't mean 2 of these guys couldn't be at the top end of the second tier of the range, which overlaps with the high range, if that makes sense. I am really surprised by that. I would love if we could get Marcus, Chase, and Chris moves. We're back to needing players to move, and they're getting up there in age, but it is kind of what it is at this point. Chris is obviously left far behind, and he just signed a new contract, so he's probably not going anywhere. But Marcus and Chase could really use regular playing time. So we'll have to see what happens there, my friends. If you're enjoying this, hit the like button. We'll see you then.